Hey, everybody. I cannot think of a better person to have on to celebrate essentially that I'm not attending the NFL draft for personal reasons, but but the show, as I say, the show must go on, and it does go on. And not only does it go on, I've got a double talk here. So which I killed right there. Okay, now, and we'll go back to the Skype. Sorry about that, Lee. I have to say candidly, but hey, look, we are here, and we're blessed to have you. Welcome to Zennie 62 once again. And Lee, first of all, I don't want to take up your valuable time much. I want to find out, and I want my viewers to be informed of your clients that are eligible for the 2018 NFL Draft. That is tomorrow. So
now we come to the most amazing day of the year, which is the draft. And hope springs eternal. Why I love it so much is that you have a lifetime from Pop Warner on of striving, of dreams, of discipline for a young man and his extended family. So it's mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, coaches, and everyone's gathered together. The tension ratchets up, and then all of a sudden the players picked, and then an explosion of joy, rhapsodic ecstasy. That one moment happens, and so it is exciting. Tomorrow, Ronald Jones, the running back from USC, has got a chance to be drafted in the first round. It would probably be towards the end of it, and hopefully that happens with a team maybe like the Eagles or the Patriots. If that doesn't happen, then I see him going very high in the second round, and that would be maybe with the Colts or the Browns. We have a number of quarterbacks that I think will end up one day being very good in the NFL, and one of them is Chase Liddon, and I think he's got a chance to go in the second, third, or fourth round. He's out of Marshall. We also have Logan Woodside from Toledo. I think, again, he has a chance to go pretty much in the same range. And he's, again, from Toledo. We have Riley Ferguson from Memphis, and he's got a chance to go maybe a little lower. And our last quarterback is Nick Shimonek from Texas Tech. And again, probably in the same range as Riley. So the whole key to this is individual teams falling in love with individual players. And it's a matter of those teams being able to select a player wherever they choose. So you never really know. We also have a running back, Jeffrey Wilson from North Texas, who I'm pretty sure will get drafted. And then the younger brother of Aaron Jones, Alvin Jones, a linebacker from UTEP, and we'll see where he goes. So that's a group. And I'll be flying to Dallas tomorrow to be with Ronald Jones, and it'll be exciting. We'll be with his mother Jackie and his sisters and his grandma and his extended family. And again, it's a rush. You have extreme tension. So draft time, Zennie, is not real time. It doesn't project that way. When you're in the moment, it's water torture time. So every second seems like a minute, every minute seems like an hour, and it just goes by drip, drip, drip.
Hey, talk more about Mr. Jones, your running back client. What is vitals on the 40, and what does he bring to a team? Like, say, the Eagles, or if the Raiders happen to pick up a second pick in the first round, the Raiders, because the Raiders do need another running back.
So Ronald gained 1,550 yards this year for USC. He's explosive. Anytime he touches the ball, he could break it. And He's got wiggle. And we went through a period in the NFL where running backs got discounted and their value was sort of seen not to be at the same level. And the concept was you could pick one up in the third round, but I think that's changed. I think you'll see Saquon Barkley go very high, and Ronald will be the same way also. As he went through scouting, he had a hamstring pull, so wasn't able to run at full speed at the scouting combine. He ran at pro scouting day, which was a special one arranged just for him, and he ran a 4.48. He can run faster. He probably can run a 4.3, and so you're going to get an every down running back who's very explosive. He's got good hands. He can block, and so he's going to be a definite offensive weapon and really revitalize somebody's running game.
It sounds like we're talking about a potential steal in the draft, given what you told me, yeah?
Well, only from the standpoint that if he had been healthy and run at 4.3, he'd have been skyrocketing up the round. But you have two concepts. One is where you're drafted, and that's key for the size of the signing bonus and prestige. But the other is you need to go out there and play. And so he's going to be an outstanding running back. If you remember last year, we were talking about our two running backs, Jamal, fifth round, both to the Green Bay Packers. And as it worked out, they ended up being the Thunder and Lightning starters for the Green Bay.
Right. I remember that. Hey, so where are we with your current clients? You have Patrick Mahomes, and we have Paxton Lynch. So what's the latest on Patrick Mahomes? Andy Reid had a lot of great things to say about him at the Combine, as I recall, because I was there.
So the trade was made for the starter, Alex Smith. He went to Washington, so that clears the path for Patrick to be the starter. I don't think there's been a player quite as ready. He got a year to sit behind Alex Smith and learn in tutelage. What you have with Patrick is a really unique package of off-the-chart skills. First of all, he's very, very bright. He comes from that athletic heritage where his father was a major league pitcher for over 10 years. His godfather, who he sort of grew up with also, the Troy Hawkins, pitched in baseball for over 20 years. So he comes from that athletic heritage and an understanding of what the work ethic is that you have to be able to go ahead and be successful. And he's very bright, so he got a chance to learn the playbook. Now he's a first-year quarterback, so anyone who expects him to never throw an incompletion or an interception, this is how we ruin young quarterbacks because the expectations are too high.
Well,
but he has freakish ability to throw the ball. He can complete some passes that very few other people can. And so it's going to be very, very exciting. With Paxton Lynch, he really has not had a chance yet to have consecutive games where he started. So the key for a young quarterback is how many times can you see the field and how many times can the game start to slow down for you? So you've got quicker, faster players, confusing defenses. So if Paxton can just get a chance to see multiple games where he's a starter, I believe he'll be an excellent player. And again, we had some really good luck last year where Cooper Rush ended up the second quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
Chad Wheeler, the offensive tackle from USC, ended up fighting for a starting position with the Giants. Jayon Brown really did a bang-up job as a linebacker for Tennessee. And so we've got some players who are very much in the mix. And Vitale, for the Cleveland Browns is a man who can play multiple positions. Seth Duvall is an outstanding wide receiver who's got tight end size. I think that you'll see a number of them be very vital this year.
Hey, so talk about your current Texas Tech quarterback, your rookie, versus Patrick Mahomes. Compare and contrast them for me.
So with Nick Simonek, he's got great arm strength. He's very smart. With the quarterback, what you're looking for is the franchise quarterbacks. Can you get someone who you can build a team around for 10 to 12 years, who you can win because of rather than with, and then who in negative circumstances. So the quarterback's thrown a couple interceptions, the crowd's booing, the center's looking at the quarterback like he's on hallucinogens. The game's getting out of hand. Now what does the quarterback do? Does he have the ability to compartmentalize, tune out, adopt a quiet mind, and elevate his level of play so he can pull a team on his back and go through and pull a team towards victory? And I think Nick Simonek really has that. And you'll see he only had a year to start because he was sitting behind Patrick. So what you're going to see with some of our young quarterbacks is they may not be drafted in the first round, but there's really no such thing as a backup quarterback. They're really akin to Prince Charles in England. They walk around holding a clipboard, which is evocative of Prince Charles slamming champagne bottles while he christens ships. And the king dies, and all of a sudden Prince Charles is the king of England, and something happens, and our young quarterbacks become the starters. And so I think you'll see some of them pop in the future and become very much a part of the starting lineup.
Now, hey, can you talk about Lamar Jackson in the context of his having his mom as an agent? What are your thoughts about that, if you can? I'm trying to leave it open-ended, you know.
I wrote an article for Forbes on the subject. What an agent can do is to, first of all, be an advisor during the scouting system. And this is not a criticism of Lamar Jackson. Any player can choose to be represented or not, however they choose, that's their right. But what we do with a player is that, first of all, the second season of scouting has become very determinative as to where a player goes. It used to be that the draft was in January. So player played the season, heavily influenced where he got taken, and played in a few all-star games, and bam, then they drafted. But now every player goes off to a training facility, so an agent can be very vital in picking the right one and making sure, especially in the quarterback situation, that they get the best quarterback trainer to work with them, especially for someone converting from like a spread offense to a pro set, and being able to show those technical skills. And then to figure out, does the player play in an all-star game? Do they go to the combine? Do they throw? What do they do? Pro scouting day and how that's set up. And the right agents have relationships with teams where they may have had a quarterback before. They may have had multiple quarterbacks before. Obviously, in my situation, I've had hundreds of quarterbacks. So you have a track record, and you can talk it through. I mean, with Lamar Jackson, obviously, there were people who want to change his position because he's such a superb athlete, but there's no reason to change his position. He's 6'2". He clearly could fit in the Michael Vick category, and he's got that dimension of being able to run. Mm-hmm. So point is to be able to present him as a quarterback with an extra dimension, but with the ability to do the disciplined quarterback things. So it's helping present a player to the NFL. core of it is the player's talent, but the package to put around it can be sort of key. And there's a lot of interplay that goes on between franchises and agents that can be helpful in making. The other part of it is making sure that in the travel that happens, that the player's easy to reach, that you schedule in a way that the visits when teams come to campus happen in an easy way. The visits where the player goes to franchises happen in an easy way. It's pretty complicated and pretty hard when you have 32 teams trying to contact a player to do it yourself. And when I have written a couple books, I've had a literary agent, and when I've done.
Are you willing to say that you think that the Patriots are going to select him as the heir apparent to Tom Brady?
I'm not sure who will take him, but I think there's going to be a quarterback run tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. There are so many teams that need quarterbacks, and they need them in two categories. The first is teams that need quarterbacks to play right away, and not denigrating the incumbents, because they all have incumbents, but those would be teams like Cleveland, the New York Jets, Arizona, and then there are teams that, and Buffalo, and then there would be teams that look to have a smooth transition, even though they still have an incumbent that's very good, and that would be teams like the New York Giants, the New Orleans Saints, the San Diego Chargers, and so there are a long list of teams that need them. And so what that sets up in a quarterback-centric league where there's never been more critical need for quarterbacks, it's going to set up a run. And I think you'll see those quarterbacks go very quickly off the board tomorrow. I think Cleveland will take Darnold, or they'll take Allen, and then you'll see the other one go very quickly, and then Josh Rosen, and then Baker Mayfield, and then that will set up the board for Jackson to go quickly, and I think all those quarterbacks will go in the first round.
Exciting stuff. Hey, what is the state of the NFL from your perspective? Because you've written a lot that cobbled together could be thought of as the state of the NFL. You've talked about CTE. You've talked about the Kaepernick situation. You have had a lot of articles out there this year alone. So in general, what is the state of the NFL? Is it healthy? Will it last the next generation? Or is there peril? What are your thoughts?
Right now, the NFL is so dominant. It's as dominant as a league has ever been in America. The television ratings, even though they took a hit last year, were comparatively are something we've never seen before in this country, because many weeks, 3 of the top 5, 6 of the top 10 shows, nighttime Nielsen, are NFL nighttime football. Now, to put that in perspective, we've never had a sport that rivals every other form of entertainment. So there's a love affair going on with the NFL that's unprecedented. And so from a standpoint of brand new stadia with luxury boxes and naming rights, from the standpoint of attendance, television ratings, memorabilia, things like an NFL network, very dominant. There's a crazed love affair going on right now. But when you look to the future, the threats, well, the first one is the cord cutting that's going on with the millennial generation that now goes directly to Hulu and Netflix and Amazon, and doesn't watch network television as much. So, and the attention span of that generation is much shorter, so keeping them in a stadium for hours is going to be tougher. The other part of it is, I've said to you over the years that I think the concussion, if moms really understand the threat and the fact that the basic play of football produces a low-level subconcussive event. And if 50% of the moms in this country know these facts and tell their teenage boys, you can play any sport, but not tackle football, it won't kill football, but it will gradually change the socioeconomics so that the people who play football are not the masses of young teens. They're people who need it to escape economic poverty. And over the years, if less people play football, then you have to either have played it or have seen it live to continue to be interested. So I think that is a threat. But to say there's anything but dominance right now is something else. I mean, obviously, when the president takes on the league, even though he's only popular with about 35% of the country, he is popular with 35% of the country, and the protest last year took a toll.
Yeah. Hey, so having said that, what are your thoughts on the news out of the New York Times that audio was leaked to the Times that presented the conversation at the NFL Fall Owners meeting at the headquarters last year? I was at the Conrad where that happened, and they were at the headquarters, where the owners expressed fear that they needed to do something else they incur the wrath of the President of the United States. Was that, and then and this is also in the context of Colin Kaepernick. They apparently, Eric Reed of the 49ers brought the Kaepernick conversation up, but the owners didn't take it on in a favorable way. But it was a very telling, at least from the way the Times presented it. I haven't heard the audio, but it was very telling. And I say that because I will say this right now. I can say in publicly what was known to only a handful of people. I worked with some league people, I don't want to say their names, to actually ask the commissioner this question at that same meeting at the press conference. And the question was, are you aware that President Trump advocated flag burning on David Letterman, 2015? And Roger looked at me like, where'd that come from? But he wasn't aware of it. The whole point was to get it out in the public. And I say that because it seems, not seems like, but there definitely is. And I'm trying to leave out some and protect some confidences. But there's a war of words, you know what I mean? That it seems like the NFL is afraid to wage. My contention is that the league is as powerful as the president. I'll just say straight out what I've said to them privately. Hey, you can move the needle as much as the president can. Why not take him on? Am I wrong?
I think what we want to see in sports is a consensus where people from all sorts of different political, racial, ethnic, religious, every kind of background can get together and enjoy sports together. The problem with using the field has always been that it's a slippery slope.
Right.
That if you can use it for one cause, then players who think that abortion is wrong, and that a country that allows abortion, is a moral challenge, and go out and protest against that. And then you have the next issue and the next issue. It starts to become a slippery slope. The goal of protest, and I speak as the former student vice president of Berkeley.
Yes.
Let me make it clear. I back the players who express themselves because I think that for too long, players sat in a little bubble without any awareness as to what was happening off the field. So I was happy to see them have political consciousness. But the logistical problem with using the field itself has always been that once it got confused with somehow insulting the military or the flag, you start to lose the point. And the point was to address problems in the inner city and to address relationships between police and African Americans.
Yeah.
So if that's the issue, then what I've always thought is focus NFL owners on addressing the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And how about we talk about funding programs in the inner city that might deal with preschool programs and education, with job retraining, with forums that bring police and those communities together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's directly address the issue, because you don't protest forever. You protest to bring attention to problems, and then you go out and solve the problems. So the players have had the leverage to do that. So you have to be tactical in terms of actually solving the problem, because what we're trying to do is improve conditions in the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
What we're trying to do is to focus on bad shootings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to see specific action taken that deals with those problems. I think owners have the power, players have the power. So the goal is not to protest endlessly or to confuse that with patriotism somehow. The goal is to do that. So I'd like to see players use the most effective techniques they can to do that. And getting in a fight with someone who loves to fight,
mm-hmm.
sometimes at the lowest level, doesn't really solve that problem.
It happens to be our president. You said something I thought was quite intriguing, because in the Times article, the owners were reported as to have wanted a spokesperson, someone that could match the firepower of a Charlton Heston or somebody that was recognized by the NRA, right? But then, I was in a situation not exactly similar to that, but when I was on the California Alumni Board, we were always talking about how to recruit more African Americans. They wanted me as the black person to do that. My counter was, hey, look, we want to hear from you as a white person that you're welcoming us. So, and there are a number of people in the room, both black and white, who agreed with me. This was in 1998. But I say that because today, and I want your opinion on this, I think the owners should be the spokespersons, because when they speak up, it shakes society. If Jerry Jones kneels with the players, it's suddenly like, oh my God, this is a game changer. And then I would like to see that. If you think that's a bad idea, I'd love to know, if it's a bad idea, that's fine. But, what are your thoughts?
Well, look, there's 32 NFL franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in inner cities in every single one of those geographical areas. So the teams are situated, and they do community things anyway.
Yep.
So the teams are situated to take on programs that would enhance the quality of life in each of those communities, whatever is identified as the critical problems. If it's creating programs that help youth, if it's creating job retraining, if it's focusing directly on the relationship between police officers and youth in those communities, the league has the power to highlight and dramatize all of those issues. And to me, if that's what the protests are about, let's directly use the power of the NFL to deal with those issues, and the power of individual players.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you know, our philosophy has always been, in my practice, a retracing of roots.
Right.
To send players back to their high school community and have them set up a scholarship fund, or with the church or Boys and Girls Club. And at the pro level, to set up a charitable foundation that engages leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders to execute a program that enhances the quality of life. So I'm a big believer that players have the ability to focus public attention on any kind of issue. And you're aware of the fact that we used the boxer Lennox Lewis to cut a public service announcement that said real men don't hit women.
Right.
And we used Steve Young and Oscar de la Hoya, that prejudice is foul play. So there are all sorts of ways that athletes can make a difference and that owners can make a difference. I guess what I'm saying is, I think politically, and allowing Donald Trump to define the issue as patriotism and an insult to the military is allowing somebody else to shape the issue in a way that is not a winner.
Hey, I know before we talk about your academy, I want to get your thoughts on Condoleezza Rice's speech this morning and the proposal to end the one and done process that some would contend has really hampered college basketball. What are your thoughts on what occurred this morning, preliminarily at least?
Well, I haven't seen her speech, but my position on college athletes is pretty simple. I think that every high schooler ought to have the right to go directly into professional sports. I think that we wish that every young person aspired to a college education. The reality is that we're keeping captive a certain number of athletes on a college campus who have absolutely no interest in academics and will never graduate and have no aspiration to graduate. And when we do that, we're setting them up to be bribed by agents, dealt with by alums. We're setting up an unhealthy atmosphere on a college campus. So let them go straight into the pro whenever they want to. It's the basic premise. You don't have a businessman that they had to go to college to go to business.
Yeah, no, I think
that they would only to the college campus. I think one and done doesn't help college basketball. We don't learn about the players the way we used to. We don't have 4 years as college basketball fans to sort of get to know someone. They don't have a chance to really enhance their skills because they're just there because they're being held captive. And then you would have a competition between the colleges and the pros for the players. And in that situation, I think you'd start to see players compensated who went to campus at a more decent level. So we start to make sure that they are at least as well compensated. I should be careful with that word, that they at least have enough resources on the college campus that they live as well as their non-athletic peers, so that they have access to a car, so that they are not penalized because they come from economically bad, tough circumstances. In other words, right now, if you stick someone here at SC or UCLA, they're on a campus with kids that get allowance from their parents. They can't work to supplement their revenue. NCAA rules are tight. So, and then they looked at the huge crowds in a stadium arena, and they see their number being sold in the student store, and they're resentful. So I would do it a very different way. Now, look, you and I both know that a 17-year-old running back who tries to make it in the NFL is not going to make it because their body is not ready yet. And an offensive lineman who's 17 is not going to make it in the NFL. They have 4 years of growing still to do. So very quickly in the first year, they'll come back to campus and say, don't try this. So then you have people sitting on a college campus who really want to be there, and they're real student athletes. And they've had the leverage to be, to create their own conditions where they're compensated or supported at a level where which is reasonable, especially in urban areas.
Wow. So I'm going to shift gears right there because if I did not, we could go on for another hour, which would be out not what we planned for. Shifting gears from that really incredible take, Leigh. Thank you very much. Talk about your new sports academy program and to train sports agents. Yeah.
So, Zennie, I've spoken on over 80 campuses across the country, business schools, law schools, sports marketing. And every week I'm overwhelmed by the number of young people who write because they aspire to have a career in sports. Many of them want to be sports agents, but many others want to work for a team or a league or a players association, or they want to work in sports marketing or branding, or work in sports television or PR, or they want to make a movie or create a television show that's sports themed, or they want to set up a charitable foundation. When you go to business school or to law school or get a degree in sports marketing, what they teach are the principles of the law, the principles of business, but not very practical in terms of skills. So when I came out of law school, I wasn't really trained to be a lawyer. I had a basic sense of what the principles of different areas of the law were. And so having done this so long, I feel a responsibility to create a new generation, or at least assist in that, of ethical, idealistic, skilled sports professionals, and to pass on and pay forward to the society a skill set that has been developed over years. So there's three ways that we're doing that. And I have the assistance of a younger attorney who's crackerjack, Chris Cabot. Mm-hmm. And there's three ways that we're doing it. The first is agent academies. So we've held about 15 of them. So for people who are specifically interested in being an agent, we teach them how to, in 1, 2, or 3 day sessions, we teach them how to listen and draw another person out. So we teach listening skills, how to negotiate, how to recruit a client, and do it with an exercise where they actually have to recruit. Last year in Dallas, they had to recruit Patrick Mahomes. And they had to recruit real parents of players. We do a negotiation exercise. We teach branding and marketing and how to set up a charitable foundation, how to set up an agency. So that's a really exciting experience. Huh. The second way is sports career conferences, which we just had in Dallas and did one in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So we have a sports media section. And so we have Dale Hansen, who's probably the dominant figure in sports television in Dallas, yep. Or Sam Farmer, who writes for the LA Times.
My friend Sam.
Right. And then we had general managers of teams.
But wait, Leigh, you didn't have anybody representing new media. Hello. Me.
That was our failure. But at any rate, so we had people from new tech and the internet, and people that were athletic departments, and people in marketing, and people in branding, and people who train players. So it was a sampler from each of those different fields. So we will continue to hold those. And we're just about ready to announce a new online course, which has many different components to it. And someone can take that and we'll give them a certificate at the end. And it's really exciting. There'll be many different components to it. So Jacob Ullman, who is a vice president who does the hiring at Fox Sports, will teach them how to get a job and what's involved in being a play-by-play or color analyst or studio host for that. And Robert Hacker will teach them about how to do rights fees deals between Fox Television and the network. And Mark Pollock will teach them how to set up a charitable foundation, which is sports themed. And I teach how to negotiate. So you'll be able to take this course online and learn a vast amount about different areas. And so at the end of it, we're both giving someone a chance to really understand what they'd like to be involved with in this field, and also some really practical training.
Hey, so how does one find out when the next one's going to be and how do they get involved in it?
By going to our website, which is steinbergsports.com, and then we have an education component, and just by signing up. So, for example, this year we'll have an agent academy here in Los Angeles, and then we'll have one in Houston. Anyone can sign up for the online education course. We've had agent academies in Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, and Ann Arbor, Michigan, and New York, Houston, Dallas, Berkeley, Los Angeles. So it's been very, very, very popular.
Hey, so I've never asked this question, but is this either directly or indirectly an attempt to meet the rise in what seems to be the number of just athletes in general? Because, we used to have just a few sports, and then it seemed with the advent of cable television and ESPN, there quite literally were new sports events and then athletes and then, television to cover them. And now we have internet and blogs and iPhones with our basically television studios built in where you can create your own, production. And now it seems like there's actually a need for more agents who can negotiate contracts between these organizations. Am I wrong in that observation?
Well, what we've seen is that the industry is exploding. So you can work for a team, a league, a athletic department. You can work in sports television. You can create a website. You can work for the internet. You can work in a radio. You can work for a newspaper. You can create and be entrepreneurial and create own new project. You can work in sports training. You can work in sports PR. And again, you can be entrepreneurial. So years ago when we created Athlete Direct and put athletes for the very first time up on a foundation, it was a startup company. And
which I remember. Yeah, I remember you were doing that. And now you've...
So once I realized that we probably weren't in business, whereas that's real opportunities for young people.
Yeah. So I think, it sounds like to me you're doing a great job of keeping the organization ahead of the curve, which you'd be commended for, because you've always been, this goes back a long way, you've always been a person who was a futurist in your thinking. And so I'd like to see the follow-up to the agent be the future of the agent. I think that'll be a great book sequel, for you. I don't know if have you given thought to a follow-up to your great book, which I have, by the way?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that sports is going to continue to progress. I just wrote a concept for Sports Business Journal, where what would sports be like in the year 2038? And I envision that artificial intelligence would have developed to the point where you'd actually have a chip inserted that would allow you to experience the visceral thrill of hitting a home run or running down the sideline. I've also written about the fact that to keep millennials in a football stadium or a baseball stadium, that you need to put a monitor in front of that seat. And down one side would run your fantasy stats, and down the other side would run your gambling bets. And underneath, you have the capacity to text and talk smack to people in or out of the stadium. And we'd let the fans vote on one play call a game where the coach had to call it, and we'll let the fans vote on one referee overturn. And when you touch that screen, you can order from the snack bar, and when you touch the screen, you get a whole series of endless puzzles and games and quizzes and content, all of which monetizes, because the challenge is, how do you keep a multitasking group that's used to multiple stimuli coming in at every second, sitting for 3.5 hours? And so I think we're going to see new technology. Virtual reality is going to change the way that we look at this, augmented reality. So we continue to see new technology and the way in which we enjoy sports evolve.
Well said there. It really is. And you're going to be in Dallas. Are you going to be in Cowboy Stadium or near Cowboy Stadium?
I actually am going to be with the general where Patrick Mahomes made a decision not to go to the draft, but to have his own party. What happens is that when you go to the draft, it's an honor. They entertain. They have a variety of events. They invite about 30 people. The problem with it is that when you sit backstage, there are probably 25 or 30 tables. So the athlete's not having an intimate event. He's sharing it with all the other draftees. Second of all, you can only invite 5 or 6 people. So most athletes come from pretty extended families. And so Mahomes last year was able to have every Pop Warner coach, every high school coach, his college coach, his college teammates, some of his high school teammates, every aunt, uncle, person under the sun. The year before, Paxton Lynch had 100 people. Wow. And so everyone was surrounding him. So Ronald Jones will have the same thing this year. And it's not a rejection of the NFL. The other problem, which you see over and over and over, is that even though we get great information from teams and have a fair sense of where someone's going to go in the draft, we're not watching it like a typical viewer would. I mean, we know teams have told us we'll take your player if we come down to pick 16, and that's pretty reliable. Still, you have the case of the plummet draft pick. So ESPN and the NFL Network love the storyline that if the draft prognosticators have picked somebody that they think is the 6th pick of Trump, it's like the tragedy of the 20th century that he didn't get picked number 6. Right. So now each pick, they're freeze framed right in on his face. And with bright lights and the sweat, and he's taking clothes off, and finally he's picked number 12. And on television, it looks like it's the great tragedy of the 20th century. Yeah. When in reality, he just was the 12th player picked out of thousands of players, and he'll go on. Yeah. And have a happy life, but on TV, it's like an abject failure. So you sort of want to keep the player out of that scenario.
Leigh, I know that you've got to get going, and so I'm going to. I want you to stick around for a little bit afterward, but I want to thank you for the time once again, and we'll be back. And hey, good luck to your clients tomorrow and continued success.
Thank you, Zennie.
You got it. You got it. Don't go anywhere, Willie. I'll be right back. Folks, we've got more to come later tonight. We've got Rick Saratella at 7 o'clock, and we've got our mock draft live at 10:30. But so come back.